If a guy brought me fish and chips, I'd be like, hell yeah, give me. Welcome to Groovy Movies. My name is Lily Austin.
And my name's James Brailsford. Hello.
Hello. I kind of dragged out me saying my name because you were taking a sip of water there, James. I was like, give him a minute.
I really appreciated that, Lily. I noticed that and I was like, slick.
Did you?
The listeners will never suspect a thing.
I'm so glad we discussed it. That's great. How are you doing, James?
I'm doing all right, thank you. Yes, this podcast has been, I feel, it's a mixture of things. It's part film discussion, part therapy, part self-discovery. So I feel like I've been on a journey of self-discovery this past week or two for this particular episode. Yeah.
Oh, really? Intriguing. Okay, well, shall we do you want to say more, or do you want to dive into the conversation and all will be revealed?
Because I've already teased it up, maybe like just get it out there rather than be a big tease, But basically, I think it may be like, Lily, okay, here's the question for you, I guess. From our friendship and knowing each other, what are my top 3 favourite sports? It's a kind of trick question.
You're not... Sports. And James, you know what? I think of you every time I go for a run. And I think about in lockdown, you telling me, because you moved back to your parents over lockdown. And obviously there was that initial bit where we weren't allowed to leave the house very often, the most intense bit of lockdown. And I remember you telling me that you and your parents had started doing a couch to 5K and were doing circuits around the property. And for some reason, whenever I do like a second circuit of the park or wherever I'm running, it makes me think of you fondly. But I have to say, that's the only kind of like athletic association I have with you. So the answer is no sports.
No sports,
So-
yeah. Yeah, essentially, is that for some reason, for whatever reason, just interest in sports, it's not in my makeup. Like, I think whatever part of my brain probably should have a bit of sports appreciation, I think has just been swamped with stuff to do in film and TV. I just think it's like had a massive clear out in my brain. For whatever reason, just sport never quite grabbed me. So it made me realise that I don't really watch sports-related films and dramas just because I'm not really into sport. So I was like, God damn it. And then I was like, why don't I like sport? And I think I don't like the repetitive nature of it. You're in one space, like a court, and the same actions are being repeated to very high degrees of skill. I'm not here to diss sport. I think for me, when I watch a film for 90 minutes, I can go back in time, into space, different locations, meet a cast of different characters. I think I like the variety, I think.
Yeah, that's a good conclusion. I think maybe I feel the same way. I feel like whenever I've watched sport, more often than not, it's because a significant other has come into my life who enjoys sport. And so I take a little holiday into an interest in sport for the time of that relationship,
A bit like Taylor Swift being into football, is it?
Like the American football.
Yeah, because the American football.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So
not that I'm dating any actual sports people. Just, while she's watching him on the pitch, I'm supporting my boyfriend by watching a TV screen sat on the sofa. And,
I'd say it's typical Taylor Swift. She does the things that all a lot of people do, but she just does them to like the ultimate level.
Yeah, and I tell myself I'm having a good time, and I am in a sense because it's fun to bond with people. But then whenever the relationship ends, I always feel quite pleased. So I'm not going to have to engage with that anymore,
So in that case, if you feel like, what I guess, let's talk about the appeal.
Well, yes, but I would say actually, of all the sport, I think you're right, is the repetitive thing is a bit boring. But actually, tennis, I can be interested in I think a little bit more than other sports. Maybe.
Okay. Any particular reason why?
I'm not sure. I think maybe because it's not a team sport. I like that the camera can be a bit closer in. With team sports, they have to, like, when you... I'm really just thinking about football. I've not watched a lot. Actually, but, my dad watched a lot of rugby and cricket. So, yeah, I've been on the periphery seeing people watch things. And the camera is always pulled out so you can see most of the players on the pitch. It feels very disconnected. I can't really be there in the emotion. And at least with Wimbledon tennis, I've only ever seen a Wimbledon match occasionally. It's like you can see their faces. You can see the sweat dripping from their faces, just like in challenges, as we'll discuss.
That's a good point, and perhaps that's why it's a sport that does have some films about it, because at least you can get into the intensity of that moment with the characters. Because there's arcs that are familiar in both these films, which is obviously you've got the person past their prime or not, on a losing streak, and they're turning it round, and you need to see that in their faces. And so if it's a football match, I guess it's harder to get the camera in there and make it work.
Okay, well, this is making me think that part of you was a little bit bored watching both movies. Is that the conclusion we can draw?
Yeah, again, I guess essentially just the sportingness of it. It didn't engage me. That's right. It was fighting against me getting into the films. Just like, no, not the bit where it's the sport, which is obviously it's fundamental to the drama. The two things are interconnected. So
I understand because I felt the same way.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Not with
okay.
women. Okay. Well, so we're talking about Challengers and Wimbledon, because Challengers is this new, quite hotly anticipated movie with Zendaya, couple of other male actors, but whatever, less important. Zendaya was the big ticket.
I mean, Zendaya, and I couldn't tell you who the other two actors are, but Zendaya.
Okay, so the other two actors are Josh O'Connell, who I think is a really great actor, actually, and
I'm not dissing the actors. It's just Zendaya. It's one word. I can remember that. It's very memorable. Just it's personal branding. Just call yourself Fred, and there you go. It's Fred and Zendaya in this film. I can't do second names as well. You're asking too much of me.
Fred and Zendaya. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. So it's Zendaya, Josh O'Connor, and Mike Feist, and they play tennis pros or coming up tennis pros. I don't know. You kind of meet them at different times. It's non-linear. We see them further along in their career and earlier on, and all of that. And I was very excited to see this movie because Luca Guadagnino directed it, and he's one of my favorite directors. Love his movies. Call Me by Your Name, amazing. I Am Love, incredible. Haven't seen Bones and All yet.
Neither have I.
That's a blind spot. Sorry, Timothée. We'll get to that. But I just thought this is a great opportunity for us to discuss a really underappreciated, undervalued, pivotal movie, Wimbledon. So we're going to do a compare and contrast.
I can't wait because here's the thing, Lily. Even though sports movies don't really engage me, watching Wimbledon, I was like, I've got a lot to say about this, though. It certainly tickled my filmmaker fancy, that's for sure.
Yes, I can see that. Okay, well, let's start with Challengers. As it's out now, it's hot, it's topical, and the movie is quite hot, I would say. My big takeaway from the movie is that I think both the way that it's filmed and the performances of Josh O'Connor and Mike Feist are impressive, because I don't find either of them attractive, and they are nothing on Zendaya's hotness. But within the film, it was plausible that they would have this kind of threesome dynamic of this love triangle. So good on them, all of them.
Good on them. Well done. Good job. Yeah.
And what are your thoughts?
Well, I have to say, number one, I did see it late at night, and I have to accept now, late night movie viewing is a tough one for me. I'm much more alert in the morning, like the zone of interest at 10 a.m. That was one of my favourite cinema moments of the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. But like evening, my brain's like, it's all a bit fuzzy. So I have to, first up, I got to confess, I really struggled with a non-linear. And you know me, I'm a huge fan of non-linear story.
I thought you'd be very happy about that.
And so did I, but then I was like, oh, wait, 14 years earlier now, who's in a relationship with who now? And I had problems keeping tabs on, in the different time zones, who was going out with who at what point. I just struggled, and I think maybe it was more to do with that I was tired. And also, I have a little mini peeve with non-linear storytelling where they flash a card and say 14 years earlier.
I was going to say that. I kept thinking during the film, is it really necessary to do that? Because 14 years, kind of like, so now I have to quickly do the maths of how old they were.
And I'm terrible with maths. I hate maths. Don't make me do maths.
Yeah, I think it would have been better if they'd have been like, Junior Tennis Open would just have been the card to flash up when it goes back to them first meeting, because they meet when the three of them are young, all around 18, about to go to university, all playing and becoming. They're all rising stars in tennis.
it made me think about how do other directors do it, and obviously referencing Nolan, you can do things like you shoot it in black and white for one sequence, or you shoot in a different kind of film stock so it looks a bit differently, or a different aspect ratio. There's other, I mean, the thing is, all of those things are deliberate choices. The director might no, I want the entire film to have a particular style that doesn't change. But I might have appreciated maybe the older stuff being maybe on digital, on video, so it looks a bit like older footage. I don't know. There's other ways that could be used to orient your viewers.
I think even they did a great job at making them look younger and acting younger. Like
I don't know, Zendaya felt the same, and that didn't help me. She said she seems ageless in all of it.
Yeah, well, not even ages. Like, it seemed implausible to me that she was like 30 with a child. Like, that didn't.
All right.
She's too young for that. But like with Zendaya, it was fine because you're right. She didn't change, but her hair changed, so it was very clear. It was very clear.
Oh no, I didn't look. I didn't even clock the hair. Jesus Christ!
She goes from having this like very chic short bob to having this beautiful long hair in like earlier ones.
Oh no, I didn't even clock that.
Okay, well, for me that made it very clear, and I thought the guys did a really good job when you meet them when they're younger.
They do seem like
how
boys,
different they are. They're so playful with each other, so young seeming. I think they're both actually really, really great actors. So yeah, I don't think they really needed the card. I don't know. I also like it when it feels like they're trying to confuse me a little bit, and like I have to work it out.
I was too tired for any of that shit.
But they weren't doing that because they were in a way spoon feeding in that they were giving us all the time. So I was like, okay, I don't know. It feels a bit clumsy, when it's like we're going back again now, blah blah blah. But for me, it was just that I think they cut back and forth too much. I would have much rather, because the way the film works is we start at this match between the two main guys, Josh O'Connor, who plays Patrick, and Mark Weiss, who plays Art. So Patrick and Art are on the court. Tashi, played by Zendaya, is watching them, looking very gorgeous in this like light blue dress in the audience of the game. She's witnessing
the crowd?
But she's right there in the middle between them watching this match. And then the film swings between going back in time to various moments, telling the story of their relationship, and then coming back to the match. So when you first meet them, there's obviously something going on between the three of them, but you don't yet know what their relationship is. And then it turns out that Patrick and Art went to tennis boarding school together when they were kids. They were bunk buddies since they were 12. So they're basically in a relationship. They're very, very close. They meet Zendaya, see her play tennis, are completely besotted, as quite rightly as they should be. And then the three of them kind of hit it off, and she sees immediately that the two guys have this close dynamic, and both of them are clearly interested in her. She says she doesn't want to be a homewrecker, but clearly that is what she knows that she has power in this dynamic, and they all, and then it kind of, they feed off each other in this way. And then, but because we keep every single scene, it feels we go back to this final match. And I feel like it loses a bit of momentum over time. I feel like it would have been stronger just to start at the start and then finish at the match, rather than going back and forth. Because by the end, because it's almost a whole hour, that final match, the final act. I know because I watched the movie twice, and I didn't want to leave, actually. I was really into it, but I left. I didn't have time to watch the whole thing. So I just watched the first hour and 10 minutes, and I was like, oh, okay, there's an hour left, I'm gonna go. And I could see that we were about to get into the main meat of this final match. That's gonna go on for a whole hour. It just drags the whole thing on so much. So I understand why you were feeling like, oh, this is not keeping my attention, because it was a bit much.
And just hearing you describe the setup of this kind of romantic triangle, it makes me think, a little bit in the vein of maybe Design for Living that we've discussed, in that the female character is like the muse who wants to inspire them to greatness to a degree, and Zendaya does that by being the coach for one of them. So there's a touch of that in there, I thought. You know, this is how, when you have these kind of thruple stories. So in the two that we've seen, that's the dynamic that powers the drama. Totally,
I think you're right. But in this film, they're all very dysfunctional. And Tashi Duncan is a very, very dysfunctional human being who, the scene that really kind of crystallizes it all is this threesome where the three of them after first meeting are together. And it's a very sexy scene, but Tashi kind of initiates that they should come and sit with her and kiss her. She's the one totally in control of this whole thing, and they're just following her and then kind of follow her lead into making out with each other. And she just sits back and smiles, watching basically the fact that she can manipulate and control these guys to do exactly what she wants, and she can have total power. And that kind of feeds into everything that follows on from it. But that's obviously how she feels about tennis as well. She, out of the three of them, is completely obsessed with the game. And the only thing she cares about is doing well at tennis. And then the crucial element is the fact that she then injures herself, so can't play anymore. So instead, she puts her energy into art, into Mike Vice character at the expense of Patrick.
I think I was just tired. It was a mixture of I was tired, so like all this plot was just like, wait, oh God, who, what, where? And then it's like, and tennis for an hour. Yeah, so it was, but I appreciate the performance. That Zendaya was like, she's obviously at peak Zendaya right now, isn't she? It was a great vehicle for her.
Okay, but the madness of the tennis, right, was when Luca Guadagnino just like goes mad in the final. There's like the problem with it. Okay, there are lots of problems with it. I mean, I love it. We need to actually get into what I love about it, because I think that this film is pretty genius in lots of ways. But the thing that I found difficult is if you don't know the game of tennis, it is very, very confusing watching this final match. I didn't really understand what had happened, because I didn't know that if you touch the net, you'll lose the point. So I didn't even know that no one had won or lost. I didn't know what was going on.
I was like, it's one of those ambiguous endings things, isn't it?
It was, but I didn't know. I didn't even know that.
No, I didn't.
So the crux of it, right, is the fact that the notion that is set out early on in the movie, Zendaya says the kind of concept of the film, which is that tennis is a relationship. When you're really playing tennis, it's like dancing with the other person. And then in this very final point, that is what happens. Finally, the guys play tennis the way she wants them to play tennis, back and forth, going crazy. They're volleying. Apparently, that is completely fantastical and implausible. You can't volley for that long. But I don't know.
Right.
I didn't know that watching it. Just looked impressive. It's so crazy what the camera does during this scene, because 1 minute it's like POV looking at art as if you're Josh O'Connor. Then suddenly the camera turns into the ball and the camera's flying through the air. It's like I was travel sick. I couldn't even look at it. At another point, the camera is the ground and the ball is bouncing on the camera and sweat is dripping onto us. It's like, what is going on here? This is like too much and too jarring and confusing. And I was begging it to end.
We were being made to experience the game of tennis as if we were in the middle of the game.
As if we were literally the ball. But
I know. But also, that is a common thread between these two films. They both have POV ball shots. I think it's kind of your duty, but...
Not Wimbledon doesn't do it in the way that Challengers does. I never feel travel sick when I watch Wimbledon.
Okay.
There is a moment where it kind of, but it doesn't do it in this like back and forth way.
No.
I feel like that is where Wimbledon is stronger than Challengers. I felt like that final scene in Wimbledon, they spoon feed you what's going on. You know exactly what's going on, and it makes it very exciting. In this, I was like, I know this is a big deal. I can feel something's going on, but I don't understand because I don't know this game. It's not my sport. But it doesn't matter to me, because the first hour and 10 minutes, at least, are very, very interesting and exciting. The kind of tension between Art and Patrick, they have this chemistry between them. The scenes where it's just the two of them and you really feel their love for each other, the sparks, the chemistry. And then there's a lot in the movie of kind of going with Patrick and seeing how he's interested in guys, and he obviously has these feelings for Art. Though I feel like maybe more could have been made of that. I feel like it's not gone into as much as I would like. But there's this element to the relationship. And then you see how Tashi kind of she's like the ball between the two tennis players. She ping-pongs that between each of them. And she's got her own like intention with that, right? But it's all about, you're right, it's all about bringing out their excellence, you know? Like when she says to them early on when they meet, I'll give my number to the person who wins the match tomorrow, because they're playing a match against each other. That is what sparks Art to play well. And obviously Patrick does win because he is the better player, it seems. But ultimately when Tashi decides that Patrick doesn't care enough about tennis for her to be worth her time, which obviously is kind of crazy, she gets with Art and pushes him to be like the most amazing athlete he could be. And there's no way he could have done that on his own because he just doesn't seem to care nearly
Yeah.
enough to want it. And I just, even though it felt so beyond the realm of reality, like I don't think people really behave in this way. I loved watching the kind of power plays that were going on between all of them, because there are different moments where each of them manipulate the other one and are trying to get something out of their triangle.
As we're talking now, especially with your excellent metaphor for Zendaya being the ball kind of bouncing between them both, maybe that's like the structure of the film, is that why we have these kind of whip snaps between different time zones, is we're kind of like doing a tennis volley. You know, the film is like volleying you from doof, 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 and maybe that whip snap was a bit much, perhaps.
The other thing I was thinking was, because of the way the structure of the story before the main matches is that Tashi meets Patrick and Art, and then she says, I'll give my number to whoever wins. So Patrick wins. So she gives him her number and they start to date. And that's kind of the first chapter of the triangle, is the fact that Tashi is with Patrick and Art is jealous and wants Tashi. It's much more about them than it is her, really. This competitive sportsman thing. And then Patrick and Tashi have this argument, and then she injures herself, and Art kind of fucks Patrick over and is like, I'm going to be there for Tashi, and supports her and not wanting to speak to Patrick. And then their relationship begins. And so the first chapter is her with Patrick. The second chapter is her with Art. It's like they're playing tennis, and Patrick's won the first round. Art's won the second. Who's going to win the third? It's all to play for.
That's a good point, actually, isn't it? Yeah. And then, of course, you get your ambiguous ending. So, not telling you. God damn it.
Yes, but in a way, they all win, right? Because she brings out their excellence and their full potential, which, again, it's just really not something I relate to very hard. I've never wanted anything that much, but it's interesting. But, okay, I want to talk to you about this notion of tennis being a relationship.
Okay.
Because friend of the podcast, Amanda Spakunis, my dear friend, he loves to play tennis, and he found this notion absurd. He seemed even a little angry about it. He was like, tennis is not a relationship. Tennis is not about the other person. In his mind, he was like, competition isn't relationship. All you're thinking about is yourself, what you've got to do, and the ball. You know, the whole thing with tennis is that you're not even allowed to speak to the other competitor. You know, there's meant to be no communication because that could throw them off. So the whole point is you don't have a relationship. You're very much just in your own head doing your own thing. So he kind of disagreed with the whole premise of the movie altogether. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, as somebody who has absolutely no interest in sport, I feel uniquely unqualified to have any opinion. However, you did ask, so I can't imagine that you couldn't. From what you've said, technically that all makes sense, but you must have, even if it's a fictional relationship because you don't know the person, you must have a relationship with the person you are trying to dominate and beat for something that's really important to you.
I feel like
you've got to want to beat the other person, which means you must have some thoughts about that other person.
I feel like he would disagree, and I'm not a competitive person, so I don't know if I feel like that there's potential to want to win without caring maybe about the other person, but his thinking was that, like, to have friendships and relationships, you can't be competitive. But I felt like the whole point, especially in a love triangle, is that a love triangle is such because there is this, like, jealousy and competition and I felt like their whole friendship.
Well, in your ethically non-monogamous one, yes. I mean, sorry, unethical in an unethical threesome. You know, it's that, yes.
But just okay. So do you never feel any kind of sense of, like, are you not like?
Oh yeah, no, there is
excited
jealousy.
by the notion of jealousy or whatever. Not in detail, but
no, jealousy is horrible. Jealousy is never fun, but it does crop up. You're right. It's just not acted out so much. It's more discussed and just like
pushed to one
faded
side.
Away. Yeah, well, not pushed on it. Just dealt with. Talked through, rather than like, fuck you, I'm gonna sleep with so and so. No, I'm gonna sleep with so and so, and I'm gonna win them. You know, it doesn't go in that direction.
In this film, there definitely seems to be an idea that jealousy is in the same group of emotions as competition, and these things can be healthy. Or maybe not healthy. Then none of them are healthy, so not healthy. But they can give something to a relationship. I'm not sure if I mean, that doesn't seem right to me, but what do you reckon? Do you think it
I
can?
don't know. I think I think we're feeling that is jealousy though a catalyst for like greatness. Is that what we're trying to say? That in tennis, that the jealous dynamic that we have, that we're competing for Tashi's attentions, and this jealousy then drives their performance in sport. Maybe I'm reaching here. I'm clutching.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
Write in and let us know.
I do think that it's not like the best thing, but I do think it's realistic that there is like can be a sense of competition with your friends or in relationships. But it's not a nice feeling, is it? Really, I don't want that.
I mean, hey, listen. Look, one of my partners said that somebody they've just started seeing what tidies does the bed once they get up. I was like, right, motherfucker, I'm doing the bed as well as soon as I get up.
Okay, yeah. So actually, it can be, James. That is a perfect example. It can be a help. It can motivate you to greatness,
to do
to
my
excellence. Okay, well, I thought this idea was interesting that basically that the whole premise of the movie is like incorrect and tennis isn't about relationships, because I feel like that is closer to how Wimbledon is. The premise of Wimbledon is that, or at least the kind of idea that is voiced is that love means nothing in tennis. Love means zero. And obviously, and actually,
out...
in that is the opposite of what that film is about. But funnily enough, in Challenges, that is kind of what it's about. Definitely, there is not love there between. Oh, there is a kind of love, but love is something that is not prioritized, certainly by Tashi's character, Zendaya's character.
Wait, quick question for someone who doesn't know nothing about sport. I know that there's the phrase "love is used in tennis," and that equals zero. Is that what it means?
Yeah. So
right,
zero. So
right.
when you're on,
God, I hadn't even thought of that.
So when you say like love 15, that means 0-15.
Right.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought of the duality. Oh my Jesus
I honestly
Christ.
think the screenwriters, that was their like starting point, the seed of it, because this is a film about the fact that there is love in tennis. There can be love in tennis, and it can be amazing.
As soon as I started watching Wimbledon, I was like, working title. I was like, I know what's coming. I know what's coming.
Yeah, exactly. But I think with Wimbledon, the film very much, I think it shows tennis much more as a solo sport. The way my friend, Armand has described it is that it's the people that the main character is competing against. You bet they're really sketched out, but when he's playing, it's very much we're in his head, we're with him. It's just him and the ball, and even I really enjoy those bits. Yeah, I love those bits. I think they're really strong. Okay, so let's talk about Wimbledon and talk me through. Yeah, explain why working title is significant.
Well, it immediately evokes a certain type of film from a certain period of time. So, like I would say, the mid 90s to mid noughties, I would say, was when there was just a lot of working title films that were made that were also very popular. And so, like, working title, it became this, I don't know, byword for a kind of certain British film product. So, you know, when I think of working title, I think that the main protagonist will, or one of them at least, will be the most British English person ever. And it will it'll be a romantic drama with some comedy. It'll probably be set in some kind of the background of a profession of some kind. in this particular case.
Do you have other examples?
Bridget Jones's Diary.
Yes, very good. It's very strong.
I mean, you know, that's the archetypal working title film. And of course, immediately I was like, what connections what connecting tissue can I find between this film and Bridget Jones, for example? So I went immediately to the screenwriters. And one of the screenwriters didn't do Bridget Jones, but did do the Edge of Reason film that was, I think, the next year or 2 years after.
Oh, but that was a very
Wimbledon.
bad film. We don't talk about that film.
Oh dear. Okay.
But yeah.
So you know, they're essentially of a sort. And I was watching it's Paul Bettany, right, playing the lead character, and
yes.
there's like he's essaying the archetypal like British romantic comedy lead. He's a bit bumbling, he's self-effacing,
very
he's
Hugh
lovely.
Grant.
Very yeah. And a part of me was like, was this written for Hugh Grant? But I suspect he would have not. I don't think he's got the physique.
Hugh Grant's. Yeah. There's no way Hugh Grant could have been a tennis player.
Yeah, a little bit tall. So, but it could easily be Hugh Grant. You know, he's that character.
Totally, yeah. So, yeah, because Wimbledon, it came out in 2004. So very much, I think of it as one of the last greats of the rom-com era, you know. And yes, and it's directed by Richard Loncraine.
Who
I don't know.
Well, interesting you don't know him, because I do know him, and like for a while I remember in my head thinking I'd be happy if I had the directing career of Richard Long Crane, because he's not a writer director, he's a director, and he does good stuff, and it's clear that he loves directing movies. He likes films to look like films. I love Richard III. If I would recommend any Richard Long Crane film for you to check out, Richard III is immaculate. It's a Shakespeare film set in 1930s England if it was a fascist government. It's excellent.
Oh, okay. That sounds very, very different to Wimbledon.
Yeah. But also that's why I like Richard Long Crane. That's why I used him as like a little bit of an varied. He can turn because I do think a good director, you can turn your hand to most things. So yeah, Richard III and Wimbledon, completely different, but you can see it's a good director working on different material.
The Bridget Jones connection, I think, is there in the cast, and there's an amazing cast.
Oh, the cast. It's a great ensemble cast.
Yeah. I feel like after this particular era, when budgets were still pretty healthy for rom-coms, you would have your two leads and they would be great. And then you'd also have a very rich surrounding cast. And, so it's Paul Bettany playing Peter Colt and Kirsten Dunst playing Lizzie Bradbury. And then we've got Sam Neill playing Lizzie's father. We've got James McAvoy playing in Lycra, playing Paul Bettany's brother, who's like obsessed with cycling. We've got Eleanor Brom playing Peter's mother. It's just like Robert Lindsay randomly, the guy from My Family playing the country club manager. It's like very, very solid.
All the small roles are cast brilliantly, and again, I was watching the thing. Classic Richard Long Crane is the kind of director who nobody raves about Richard Long Crane, and I'm not going to say reevaluate Richard Long Crane, but however, he is a director who, if you want your film to look like a film and to feel like you went to the cinema and you saw a proper film, Richard Long Crane's your guy. He does all the things you need. He gets a great cast. He's really good at cinematic composition. He knows how to block scene. All the things that you kind of want from something that feels like a movie. Richard Long Crane's your man.
Yes, totally. I agree, because this film is really considered, just another like rubbish, silly rom-com. People are very dismissive at this movie, when actually I think, if you're going to dismiss the genre, dismiss it. But in this genre, it is such a well-made film, because not just the way you'll tell me shortly about how well the actual make of the film is, but the script is just so well done. It's like it's way better than it needs to be, because the premise is bonkers. Paul Bettany is a aging tennis pro who's done Wimbledon 16 times, and this is his final Wimbledon. It was a wild card. He shouldn't have really been there, and he's going to retire after that. He meets Kirsten Dunst, who plays an upcoming tennis pro, this is her first Wimbledon, and she's tipped for great things, and she's American and confident and ballsy, and he's British and awkward and modest, and they come together. The sparks fly. They immediately are into each other and basically start seeing each other. And Kirsten Dunst's energy inspires him so much that he goes on to win Wimbledon. And that in turn inspires
the power everyone. Of love.
That's the power of love. It's the power of when someone loves you, them seeing you and really seeing what you can do, your potential. Because, when he first arrives at Wimbledon, people don't know who he is. He tries to announce he's going to retire, and then the press kind of ignore it and talk over him. He can't get it out. And by the end, he's fucking winning Wimbledon and everyone is behind him. And finally, this was, I think, before Andy Murray had won Wimbledon. So it was like, finally, a Brit is winning Wimbledon. All thanks to the love of Kirsten Dunst inspiring him so much. And that's mad. But the actual relationship and how them getting together feels to me totally plausible and very sexy and cute. And so it makes you believe in the rest of it, And I think that's genius. You need a good script to do that. It could have been so silly.
It's a solid script. Again, Richard Long Crane, he doesn't shoot a script that isn't ready to shoot, Yeah. He may not be a writer-director, but I think he knows a good script and he knows how to work on a script to get it up and running. Another thing I thought of, so this is a bit tangential, not directly related, but it made me think, have you seen a film called The Limey by Steven Soderbergh?
No, I've not seen that, no.
Because that stars Terence Stamp in his later years as like an old gangster who's trying to seek revenge on his daughter, who seems to have been killed, but it's all very murky, mysterious. So he's going on like a revenge mission. And what they do in that they give him flashbacks to when he was a younger man, and they use footage from a 1960s kitchen sink drama that he acted in. So it's actually real footage from another unrelated film to flashback. Could we do that with Civil War? Could we use the flashbacks from Wimbledon? And it's like her career before, I was like, So I was. They call it head canon, don't they? Where you try and connect different things in your head as if they're part of the same universe. Head canon.
I love that. That it was the same in Everything Everywhere All at Once. How there were flashbacks to. Do you remember there were flashbacks to?
Oh yeah, to Michelle Yeoh's characters.
Thank you, Michelle Yeoh on the red carpet, and that was real footage from her on the red carpet as Michelle Yeoh, and I found that very fun. But it's yes, I'm glad you brought that up, the connection with Civil War, because having just seen that movie very recently, it was great to go back and see a young Kirsten Dunst in a completely different role. Kirsten Dunst is one of the greatest actors that have ever lived. Like, her oeuvre is so varied and incredible, and she's always good in all of it. Like, she is so beyond convincing. Is this very... And I love it because it's very similar to Tashi in Challengers. And I love that in both these films, it's like tennis is the perfect sport in which to explore women being very dominant and very in control. And similarly to Tashi, Kirsten Dunst's character, she is the one who initiates everything with Paul Bettany's character. She's like, if you hit this one, I'll sleep with you. And then he, of course, misses because he's like, what? And she's like, oh, shame, could have used the workout. But that she's definitely going to sleep with him. But she's completely in control of the whole thing. Initiates it. Their first date is so sexy, with her being like, oh, I don't want the fish and chips yet, which I obviously do not relate to at all. It's like, if a guy brought me fish and chips, I'd be like, hell yeah, gimme.
And I'll be like, wait, has this got shitloads of vinegar on, though? Has the chips got shitloads of vinegar on? Because otherwise, take them back and get me that vinegar.
Agreed. Totally agree. Okay, good. I'm glad we're agreed on that. But she's so good. She's just so good in it. I love it. It's so, and it's very different part from her character in
completely.
Civil War. I have some elements I want to discuss with you. The main thing being the very subtle bisexuality of the movie.
Okay, talk me through this.
Yeah.
Maybe it just ever so slightly slipped under the radar for me here.
It's subtle as fuck, and I love it because a film in 2004, bisexuality, it's not a thing being shown on mainstream movies. Yeah. But in this movie...
Talk me through it.
Okay, so one of the best things about it is the fact that Paul Bettany has a friend, a training partner or a play partner, or I forget what he's called. Early on, he says something about going for a date with an heiress. And then later on, Paul refers him and the fact that he loves men in leather shorts.
Yeah, right.
So, the implication is strongly there that this is a guy who likes everyone. And then also a bit later on, Paul Bettany runs into a friend of his, a female friend, and she introduces her female partner. Okay, so who knows if she's bi or not? But it's a film that's like very subtly showing the fact that there isn't just heterosexuality in this world, and I love that is like there without it being like a big thing, because it's it's fucking normal, but you never ever see that. Also, the other thing I'd like to point out is that when there's this amazing montage of Paul Bettany getting ready for his date in a rush, and he's trying on different underwears, and eventually he settles on jeans going commando. I think that is the most bi thing I've ever seen, and I love that for him. So
thank you for bringing that to my attention. I was more distracted by it. Felt like Nicola Costa-Waldau he'd had his voice dubbed, or I was more distracted by that anyway. But that's just
he had his voice dubbed.
Well, I think it's him. Here's my theory. It's definitely him dubbing his own voice, but I suspect there was an accent change because he's meant to be German. Is that right? And it's not a very pronounced German accent. And I think he did a German accent on set, and they in ADR edged it down because it just doesn't seem to match. Anyway, sorry, that's just a super nerdy thing. Whereas Paul Bettany's voice, it sounds like actually his voice recorded on set at that time. Anyway, that's how my little filmmaker brain goes on a little. We need some behind-the-scenes footage of Nicola Costa-Waldau delivering some lines, and we need to compare and contrast. Can anybody get that to us?
I actually worked with him once on a shoot.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Hopefully he's a nice guy. Seems a nice guy.
I mean, he's a beautiful man. That's all I can say. He didn't say much, but he was quite quiet. But yeah, doesn't really have any accent actually at all. So yeah, he sounds just like how he does in Wimbledon. So yeah, so he was going a bit too hammy on the German accent.
because there was a line where he references being German. I was like, oh, what? So filmmakery things that I thought, yeah, this is Richard Long Crane. This is somebody like, you can tell that when he gets given a budget of like 50 million-ish, he's going to put it on screen, that he's not going to waste it. He wants to have fun with it. So, you see a lot of dialogue scenes where you have somebody right in the foreground addressing somebody in like a mid shot, and all the way behind them there's extras, and in the deep background there's extras that were going into their seats in Wimbledon. So that's throughout the film, you get this sense of scale, and that's what making it one of these kind of rom-com dramas on a big budget, that's what it gets you. It gets you scale. I love the shot where you see Kirsten Dunst's character go into a hotel. The camera, in one uninterrupted crane shot, pulls up and then swoops back down to reveal Paul Bettany's character sneaking out of the same hotel behind a little thing that you put luggage on to get your luggage into the hotel. And it was like that's cinematic directing. That's someone who bloody loves doing this kind of stuff,
Yeah, that is a great moment. Also beautiful lighting. There's that great golden hour scene of them running together in Brighton or somewhere. Gorgy.
Yeah, there's quite a few scenes that are done at Magic Hour. Again, that's something where, you have to schedule for that. And also it means you can only shoot for like a hour total for that sequence. So those sequences may have been done over many, many evenings just to get all the shots, which takes time, costs money. That's where your 50 million goes.
Yes, because... very interestingly,
as we both separately, turns out, I love this.
Yeah, James and I both, without having any communication about this, both separately used an inflation calculator to work out the budget in today's money, the budget and box office for Wimbledon compared with Challengers, because very fascinatingly, the budget is about the same for both Challengers and Wimbledon.
Absolutely. That was interesting to me because I was like, okay, we're just for inflation, but it does show you that you got more for your money in the 2000s. I mean, the production value and the sense of scale in Wimbledon is way bigger than in Challengers, which, and Challengers is a different kind of story. It's not trying to be that spectacle, but the same amount of money, roughly, doesn't get you the same scale. Or maybe Zendaya just took a bigger chunk of the check. I don't know.
I don't know, because I reckon that at that point, Kirsten Dunst was huge at that time. So I reckon I suspect they would have been paid around the same, honestly. Like, if anything, Kirsten Dunst more, so...
Yeah, absolutely. But I think things like paying supporting artists, things like the boring stuff, like the cost of materials to build sets and things, it's just, they've increased massively. So it just means that if you have the same amount of money now or then, it's just not going as far.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there isn't a big supporting cast in
it's very
Challengers.
focused on those three.
The people who are playing Zendaya's family are extras in the movie. They don't ever. I think that her father has like a couple of lines, but you don't get to know him at all. And the only other present character is the umpire, and that apparently was played by Zendaya's personal assistant. So.
Really?
They probably got a good deal on that. You're right. It's, even though it looks really good, I think it looks expensive. It's like beautifully shot. The actual sets are not that expensive. Like, there wouldn't have been as much money put into it. There aren't that many. You're right. There aren't as many extras, and everything feels a lot more empty.
Yeah, exactly. It feels empty, or it feels a little bit more contained. I did go and see Challengers at the Super Screen at the Cineworld, which is, it's a good premium screen. And I was saying to you before seeing this, I was looking forward to seeing like just a regular drama on a big, nice quality screen rather than it have to be an action film. And I would like that to happen a bit more, really, because it's nice, even though it wasn't I didn't fully embrace the film and think it was great. I enjoyed going to the cinema to see a drama on the big screen, like the olden days, Lily, rather than being tucked into screen fucking 12 and it's about 10 foot wide and the sound's tinny. It's nice to go to the cinema and enjoy a film on the big screen and look and sound nice.
I have to say, I think you need to give it another go because I enjoyed it the first time.
Do you think I need to go in the morning like I did Zone of Interest?
Definitely, because I saw it in the evening the first time and it was like a press screening. Very busy, everyone was very animated. That moment where the Spider-Verse is mentioned, everyone went crazy for that Easter egg.
Right.
And you can't help but think about the people around you. Whereas the second time I watched it, not a great screen, but I was on my own and it was the afternoon. And I actually enjoyed the whole thing a lot more, even though I had enjoyed it first time around. But I was like, I really didn't want to leave. It was such a shame that I had to miss that final hour because I was like, really, everything fell into place a lot more about what the film was kind of trying to say and
Okay.
do. But I always find that I always love a film more the second time I've seen it. I think it's I think you always get so much more, even though you lose the element of surprise, obviously. So yeah. So I think give it another go, James. Go in the morning.
Okay. Go in the morning, absolutely. Okay, I don't know why I keep going in these evenings because I always have a much better time. My brain's much more engaged in the morning.
But I'm very happy to hear that it sounds like you did enjoy Wimbledon. Last week when I was trailing it, you seemed very sceptical about whether this movie was going to be up to much.
Well, Richard Longcrane, he what can I say? He put it in the back of the net. I don't know, got it over the tennis bridge.
Within the...
Net.
What?
The net.
Within the net or over the...
Within the net.
Yeah, that is called a net as well. But not the back of the net is football.
It's football, yeah.
He got it.
Look, he got it across the line. I can't...
No, but you don't want it to be across the line, right? Because then it will be out, I think.
He scored a point.
He got the match point. Maybe.
There we go.
I don't know what that
Thank
means
you.
either,
Yeah.
though. Okay, sorry to any tennis fans.
What I'm going to say, he elevated something that I thought was, it did, Wimbledon definitely conformed to what I thought it was going to be. I didn't quite realise it was a working title film, but also I was completely unsurprised because it's a very working. But, I just thought it was elevated by a solid script, great supporting ensemble cast, and just really nice direction, like thoughtful, engaging. There's a lot of stuff going on.
And ultimately, they discovered that love doesn't mean nothing in tennis.
Now you said that, it's like, oh fucking hell, that's definitely what the writers were like. They had that on the wall.
Yeah, that and the fucking comet. The comet is a huge clanger. Do you remember the comet?
Comet?
There's this tiny little thing about the fact that this rare comet has appeared and it will only last for 2 weeks, just like their relationship.
Missed that.
It's so stupid. They look up at the comet. It's like,
oh yeah,
lose the comet, guys, lose the comet. But
yeah, you could have cropped that out.
That script is perfection. We didn't even get to talk about it, but James McAvoy playing the brother, he's so good.
He's so good.
The whole family unit is amazing. I love them coming together at the end and watching the match.
They got James McAvoy at the exact right time, which was
before he was really big.
Before he was really big, so he would do these supporting roles, and he's so good at it because what you've got is a leading man just focusing on being a supporting character actor. I mean, he's also very much like the archetypal, let me think, is it called Spike in Notting Hill? The kind of wacky side character who's a bit of colour. So when he pops on screen, it's all about the colour. He's doing the crazy things that the straighter main star doesn't do,
He even does the same thing as Spike does. Both of them sell pictures of the the couple, which then leads to the next element of the relationship. I hadn't even see so many parallels. Yeah, it is a very It's
very much working title. They got like a hit formula, and this was another of that hit formula.
Yeah, so good, so good. All right, well, shall we take a trip to the film pharmacy?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Dear Lily and James, I have a non-cinema movie question.
What? How did this get through the screening process?
Can you watch great comedy films on your own, or do you laugh more with company? I live alone and definitely don't watch many, brackets, if any, comedy films compared to watching them with others. Is this something to work on?
Very interesting question, because it's a question I've been asking myself the past couple of years, is that
really?
I rarely watch comedy films. And I like to think I'm a good laugh. I like having a laugh. And
James,
in
you
general,
are a very good laugh.
But when I watch films, I don't watch any comedy films. It's like, what the fuck's wrong with me? Have a laugh,
Same.
James.
Yeah, I know. I don't either. I don't enjoy comedy as a whole. I have this whole thing of I don't like to feel like you're trying to make me laugh. If you're trying, I'm put off.
You are a tough crowd for a comedy audience, Lily.
I know, it's ridiculous. All what I want is people to say funny things just off the cuff and it not to feel premeditated. It's stupid though, because then when I do, Anchorman is one of my favorite films. It's so good.
Never seen it.
Oh, but even with that, I have to choose to be okay, I'm going to do this now.
Because it's a part of me is somehow I don't want to watch something ridiculous because I'm a serious. It's there's all this bullshit. It's what is wrong with me? Because surely it'll just be good for my mental health just to watch some films that make you laugh. That sounds like a good thing.
But the thing is, a film for example, a Judd Apatow movie. Do you think that movie will make you laugh though? I don't believe that you're always I need to watch something highbrow, because You were just saying you went to see The Phantom Menace because it was May the 4th day or whatever.
Yeah, you're right. Listen to what you said about your reasons for not comedy. Maybe it's something along those lines. I don't know.
So but what do you think? Do you think, so the question is kind of about
Oh, yeah.
being with company or not? Can you watch great comedy films on your own, or do you laugh more with company?
Yeah,
And I think so, yeah. Like, I only want to watch them with people.
Yeah, and I think comedy probably works best with more than one person, just because you can enjoy laughing together. Like, there's that moment when, especially with a small group of friends, when it's in a house, that if you're all into a comedy film, there is that shared experience of like you're kind of howling with laughter, and you're both finding the same thing funny, and then you amplify that in a cinema where it's a bunch of strangers,
Yeah,
and you're
that's
laughing along with a bunch of,
amazing.
that's a real buzz. I remember the opposite of that though, Lily. Like, I think maybe this is a foundational thing which put me off watching comedy films, was going to see in cinemas on release in, maybe it was 98, There's Something About Mary. And I remember being in a packed cinema and everybody was laughing. And I was sat there with my arms folded, absolutely not laughing at all, just thinking, why can't I find this funny? What is wrong with me?
I know.
I just couldn't get...
Actually, yeah, that might be it for me as well. There's nothing worse than thinking, why am I so serious? Why am I not getting it? Why don't
What's
I have
wrong
the
with
funny bone?
Yeah.
So I also don't like that movie. It's
Yeah.
just stupid. And it's
Shit.
just misogynistic.
It's just crap. I
it's
just didn't
just-
find it funny, like,
Yeah.
at all. And like, there's nothing weirder than being at a comedy that in the cinema everybody is laughing at, and you're just like,
Yeah.
I remember I laughed at the end credits thing. They had like a bit of a cast sing along to a funny song at the end. I can't remember what the song is. And I remember that elicited a little chuckle, and I thought it took to the end credits for me to actually laugh.
You know what's funny is recently I've gone to a few press screenings and then gone again to see the same movie with a paying audience. And what's interesting is at the press screenings, the audience is really up for laughing. They're really prepared to laugh. Like, there were so many big laughs in June. There were lots of laughs and challenges. I mean, challenges is very funny. I don't think really mention that, but it's a very, very funny, camp, over the top kind of film, which I really enjoyed. And then with both films, when I went to see them as a paying punter, people weren't really laughing. It's like you have to know that the film is trying to be funny, I think. And I feel like for some reason that, I don't know why, that critics sense that and go with it. Whereas in both these films, in Challenges, it was quiet, and it felt to me like this really is I mean, it was also because it was quite an empty screen, actually. So I'll be interested to see if they are able to make back their money, because it feels like it might be, after the initial hype, hasn't really done amazingly. Like, I checked, and it's doing a lot worse than Civil War, right? But
Yeah, I know.
point.
I mean, I think what you've touched on, though, is something that I've been thinking for years and years, which I think just in general, British audiences at cinemas are just a bit reserved. You know, we don't get extreme reactions. And my parents told me, like, when they used to go and see the James Bond films, that at the end of the big stunt, because there's always a big stunt in a James Bond film, that the audience would applaud. They would give a round of applause to the cinema screen. You know, you and I think, have seen 2001, where it gets an applause, you know, every now and again. But in general, that doesn't happen really. You know, that's incredibly rare. So I just think I went to see the last James Bond film. Not a great film, but, you know, it had action, it had spectacle, it had all the crowd pleasing elements. But there was just there was nothing from the audience. There was no sense of excitement, nothing. And I miss that. When you go to America, you get the opposite of that. It sounds like essentially what the press screening is, which you get an involved audience who are here to make some noise and to experience the film. And I love that.
It's so nice when everyone's laughing. It then makes you want to laugh more if you're if you're feeling it too.
One of my most memorable cinema experiences was in the early 90s, going to see Pulp Fiction on a Friday night with a packed audience who all wanted to see Tarantino's follow-up to Reservoir Dogs, and everybody was into it, and we all laughed as one at all the jokes, and they all landed, and we were enjoying every moment. That's a communal experience.
But you know what? Prince Charles is amazing for that. That cinema,
it is.
Whenever you go, everyone...
Yeah.
If it's a comedy, or, you know, people are really, really involved. And so I think you're right. It's just probably that the general culture is to not be too vocal. But then there are certain spaces where there are different rules of engagement, you know.
I know.
And then maybe that is the case with press screenings. You know, that it's known that we're going to be enthusiastic because we love film and we're supporting film. Whereas, yeah, we're all a bit more shy when you're just at your, you know, local everyman or whatever.
Well, what conclusion have we drawn? Get out and see more comedies, maybe.
But they were wondering if it's about working on watching comedies alone at home. And I would say no.
There we go then. Yeah, I need to work on my own comedy watching first before I give advice on this. But you've certainly given me cause to reflect.
Yeah, it has for me as well. But the thing is, when I'm on my own and I laugh at something, it does feel a bit strange to be alone watching something and then be like, you know. So
yeah. Because it's almost like laughter is a social signal, isn't it? That you laugh to signal to the person who said something funny that you find it funny. Whereas you're bypassing that by watching it by yourself, aren't you? Who are you signaling to? Yourself?
So what you're saying is it's like the tree in the forest. If you laugh and no one hears it, you're not really laughing.
It's not
really funny.
Maybe. Wow, this is a bit of a confusing end. Anyway.
Yeah, we're not sure. Well, the answer is, I don't know. I feel like if you have the desire strikes you to watch a comedy on your own, go for it. But I don't think you need to work on it otherwise. I think just keep it as communal viewing.
And also, listeners, do you have any strong recommendations for good solo comedy films? Because I'd be well up for watching a few.
That's a good idea. Yeah, any recommendations, please send our way.
Help us out. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of Groovy Movies.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And if you could leave us a like or a 5-star review on wherever you listen to our podcast, it all helps get our podcast out to a bigger audience.
So we will see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye.
Bye.
Follow us on Instagram at Groovy Movies Pod or email us groovymoviespod@gmail.com.
Groovy Movies was produced and edited by Lily Austin.
Music and sound by James Brailsford.
Our logo was designed by Abby Jo Sheldon.
For references and more information about the films discussed, check out the show notes.